If you are looking for more grounding and balance in your life, tree pose can help you harness your inner power and channel your rooted, strong trunk no matter how the winds of chaos and stress flow around you. I'm Logan Haley. Welcome back to the Yoga Nomads. Today we are talking everything tree pose or Vrikshasana. This beginner-friendly balancing pose offers lots of variations down here on the floor, on the calf, on the inner thigh, and all the way up on the hip for a nice hip opening action. This posture is strong and rooted, and it really sets the stage for a strong foundation in all of your other balancing postures in yoga. So let's get right into Vrikshasana. I love the way yoga poses are named after nature because truly the tree metaphor will guide us through this whole pose, and we have so much that we can learn from the beautiful trees of this world. Now, of course, we can't deny that every tree needs strong roots and a strong trunk to build their foundation. This pose is all about balance, yes, but it's also about strength in the legs. It's about taking the time to flex those muscles and root those feet and really get settled before we go into the full balancing. Okay, so I'm gonna show you a lot of different variations, modifications, tips, and tricks that you can use to really master tree pose and kind of find your flow and your balance, laugh when you fall out, get right back into it so that you are ready to face whatever life throws at you, all right? Starting in mountain pose, we are going to make sure our hips are perfectly steady and we are grounding into the earth. Now remember, mental and physical balance are two sides of the same coin. The more balance you can find in your yoga practice, you might find that it spills out into your regular life as well. So if you struggle with work-life balance or just feeling peaceful with the stress all around you, I promise you this focus, the focus and stability of this posture is going to help you so much, trust me. So when we're in mountain pose, your hips are perfectly aligned. They're stacked above your knees, above your feet, and your spine is strong. You're standing tall. As you shift your weight into your standing leg, we're gonna start with the left leg. I want you to not just suddenly go into it, okay? I want you to focus on building the trunk, building those roots first. So I'm gonna create a slight micro bend in that left leg, and I'm just gonna keep my right toe on the floor for stability while I build this foundation. So from the side, you can see I'm rooting into the earth, and my feet are spread kind of like yogi toes. My toes are spread apart, all right? And my foot is rooting and anchoring so that the arch of my foot is lifted from the floor. And that grip, I promise, is gonna help you. So I might bend over a little bit in the beginning. I'm checking my calves are engaged, my quads are engaged, my glutes are definitely engaged, and then when I actually lift up to begin balancing, I am really strong and rooted. Okay, so as you build that foundation, you're also finding your drishti. That is the Sanskrit word for your focal point, and that is one of the most overlooked secrets to any sort of balance in yoga and in life, if you want to extend the metaphor that way. So I choose a drishti that's just slightly above my eye level and maybe a few yards in front of me, okay? You don't want to look down, you're not going that way, and you don't want to look too far up either because that can feel destabilizing. You want your neck to be neutral and your eyes to be able to fixate on the horizon or a spot on the wall or whatever it might be, and the longer you can stare at that, the longer you can hold your balancing pose, okay? So I've strengthened and I've built this foundation. Now I can start to straighten out that knee and move into the entry-level form of tree pose, which actually doesn't come that far from the floor. So you can just start by bringing the arch of the foot to your ankle bone. You don't want too much pressure on any of your joints, so you can still keep your toe there to find your balance. And this still counts as tree pose. There's no shame in this. This is actually a really great just entry-level balance place to be. Now, moving into the next position would be going to the calf. A lot of people make the mistake of going straight to the knee, and you actually never want to put your foot on your knee joint, okay? That's a recipe for injury, and you really don't want to hurt your knee joint. So we're actually actively pressing the arch of the foot into that curve of the calf. I love the way our bodies just fit together like little puzzle pieces, okay? So I can press into the calf, and I know my standing leg is strong, okay? Everything in that leg is active, and the bottom arch of my right foot can really find stability there on my calf. Now, the most important part of building this strong foundation is, again, making sure we're stable. So when you start lifting your leg, it's natural to want this hip to go up, okay? And this is the biggest mistake I actually see in tree pose, besides forgetting about the drishti. You don't want darting eyes, and you don't want unstable hips. So actively engage the glutes and bring that hip down. Let me show you again from the side. See how my hip is lifted versus when it's stable. From the back, see how my hip is lifted versus when I bring it down and I engage. My hips want to be at that same level, okay? They're aligned and they're rooted in the same plane. So they are totally square to the front of the room. My glutes are remaining engaged. I still have a micro bend in my leg. I'm not locking it out, but I'm not totally bent over. And now I can focus on my core. Engage that core to straighten out your spine. Roll those shoulders back and down so the shoulder blades are kissing behind you, and bring your hands into a prayer position at heart center. This is where you can hold and breathe and start to find your balance. As you advance in this pose, you can also find different arm variations that feel good for you. I like to reach up. Don't shrug the shoulders up, keep them down, but reach up, a little activation in the arms, and then you can also widen your branches and let your leaves flow in the wind. This can also help you if you're holding this for like truly 30 seconds, a minute, or longer. If you do start to feel unstable, you can kind of flow, let your branches flow in the wind like a Florida palm tree in a hurricane, okay? You can still do this and feel stable. It's kind of a fun test of holding your balance when the winds challenge you, okay? So going onto the right side, we'll cover a few other variations you can do. I am going to root into the floor. The balls of my feet, the knuckles of my toes, and my heel are all pressing down. My calves, my quads, my glutes are engaged, and I can shift my weight into that standing leg, starting out down here. And now with my core engaged, my glutes engaged, I can begin bringing that left foot up to the inner part of my right thigh. Remember, we're skipping the knee. So you've got ankle, you've got calf, and then you've got inner thigh. Now initially, my hips are not stable, they're not square, so I'm gonna actively engage the left glute and feel that hip go back and down. Now, your knee angle here is important. It shouldn't be forward, because that's obviously twisting you, and it doesn't have to be straight out to the side of the room either. It's a very slight angle. It should feel natural. It shouldn't feel forced, okay? If it feels forced, I would recommend going back down here, because we don't wanna force things. We don't want our tree branches to break, okay? So, moving back to that inner thigh, my foot is pushing into the thigh, my thigh is pushing into my foot, my glutes are engaged, and I may wobble a little bit, but my hips are stable, and I'm catching myself. If I feel unbalanced, I'm rooting down still, and my hands are coming to my heart center. Now, focusing on my drishti, I can hold here for a few breaths. Do it with me. Exhale. Strong inhale. Exhale, engaging everything on the lower body and the core. Inhale, lengthening through the crown of your head. Standing tall and strong. Exhale, engage. Optionally bringing your arms up above you. Spreading out your branches, and you can hold here for as many breaths as you'd like, or until that standing leg is just aching. Hold a little longer. Now, to release, I like to rebend a little bit in the standing leg and then slowly rotate that knee out. You can use your hand to guide if you want, and come down. But we won't always come down that gracefully. Let's not be fooled. Sometimes your come down will look like or whatever, okay? Just have fun with it. That's what yoga is about. The trees are out there laughing at us anyways. So let's go into the full variation now, back on our left leg. Obviously, whichever one works for you, I'd recommend balancing both sides, but I'm just switching back and forth so I can show you the overall vibe and so that I don't completely exhaust my roots and trunks. Shifting your way into that left leg again. Build that strong foundation, grip the floor, hips are squared, core is engaged, shoulders rolled back, spine is strong. For this pose, your hips do need to be fairly open. So do a few hip openers before if you want to go into this full variation. I like to bend the right knee up, and then I'm going to keep my drishti forward. I would not recommend looking down at your foot because that's just going to make things harder to hold. So I'm grabbing my foot and I'm actually rolling my foot so that the ankle is feeling kind of flexible. The bottom of my foot is going up and the top of my foot is going to come and rest high up here on my hip. So you have several places your foot can roll open. It can be a little lower on your thigh, but ideally you want to get as close to where your hip meets your thigh as possible. And the top of the foot is pressing into that hip bone. Again, I don't want my hips to be unbalanced here. I want to square them back together so everything is straightened up, almost like the same that my hips would look if I was standing in mountain pose. Like just imagine that whether your one leg is lifted or not, you're basically in mountain pose, which I love because there's lots of trees in the mountains, okay? So again, I'm pulling the top of that foot onto the hip, all right? And you can feel a lot more engagement here. You should still be rooted through that foot, activating that arch, and then engaging both of those glutes. And the more you engage the glutes and the core, actually the more your hip is gonna open up and do that external rotation, and your knee will be actively pushing back and down, okay? So, bringing your hands into prayer position. You can also hold the foot here if you want to do a half prayer. You can keep your hands on your hips. You can reach your branches straight out to the side. Truly get creative. There's no rules for how your hands can be because you have a lot of fun things you can play around with here. This pose is very leg and balance focused. Whatever helps you hold the balance is fine with me. So I'm spreading my branches. I'm keeping my gaze fixed on my drishti, keeping my drishti fixed on my focal point and breathing. Feeling that hip just really opening up, engaging the glutes. If you wobble, it's okay. We all wobble sometimes. Engage. And to get out of this one, you definitely want to be careful coming out of this variation because you don't want to hurt your knee or your hip. So lift that foot off the hip, rotate back out to the front, and slowly come down. Now, if that is just too intense for you, no worries. I want to show you how to use a block really quickly to make this pose a little more accessible. So, shifting your weight into your standing leg, you would place the block really up against your ankle, whichever side you're going on, and you can actually use that block to stabilize your toe and practice just slowly lifting from the block so you can build that balance without feeling like you're gonna full on fall over. So I could put the little tippy of my toe on there. I could make the block go downwards so it's lower. And I can just practice pressing into my standing knee while having a little bit more stability. It feels so nice. So my final tips for you before parting are to remember 3 things in tree pose. I want you to remember your drishti. I want you to remember your hips. And I want you to check on your shoulders, okay? Your drishti is your focal point, whatever direction you're facing. When I get into this pose, I am staring straight ahead, okay? I don't want my eyes darting or I am gonna fall. That's the number one tip, okay? Number two is those hips. So whatever leg you're on, whatever step whatever variation you're doing, I want my hips to never, ever, ever, ever be lifted like this. I'm exaggerating there, obviously, but it's natural to have to lift the hip to get into the pose. But then we always have this shift, boom, where we can bring that upper hip back and down and the glutes engage. Notice from the back how when you do that, the glute engagement is the game changer. This is like less engaged, and now I'm gonna squeeze this and I can suck it in. I can keep those hips square, okay? And I don't want this hip going out either, no way. The balance is here, finding that stable point where your hips are square and both of them are in line in the same plane. Again, from the side, you will notice if it's lifted. You will always see if it's lifted, and you will have a lot harder time balancing if it's lifted. So we've got drishti, we've got hips, and we've got shoulders. So the last thing we think of is, of course, the branches of our tree. We've checked all of our focal point in our hips, and now I want to make sure my shoulders are never shrugged up to my ears. It's not comfortable, it's not good for your neck, so let them just roll down, okay? The shoulder blade should always be rolled back and down, all right? Regardless of where you are in this posture, those shoulder blades should roll back and down, and that's how tree pose is actually going to improve your posture overall. No shrugging. Keep them down. Okay, thank you so much for joining me today on the Yoga Nomads. Over on our website, we have all the ultimate guides to everything you need to know about yoga poses and chakras and all the best gear so you can really find more balance and zen in your life. I hope you have the most beautiful day and notice those trees. Learn some lessons from them, okay? Namaste.